Good afternoon and thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It would be much appreciated. We do have a Phase 6 MJO at the moment. We do have a very mild overall mid-latitude pattern. This is where the MJO is currently positioned. So the greens represent rising, the oranges represent sinking. And we have now seen this propagation eastwards out of the warm phases, even the stormy phases. We see Storm Ashley form while we were in phases 3. That represents a positive NAO and quite a stormy setup for not just Western Europe, by the way, but also across the northwest portions of the North America as well. We had two very deep areas of low pressure simultaneously, both one over the North Pacific and one over the North Atlantic. And that responded to that favourable phase for storminess, for a stronger jet stream within both the Pacific and the Atlantic basin here. But this is the setup at the moment. You don't get much more of a positive Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern than what we have at the moment. Look at how far north and look how strong these areas of ridging is within the same latitude here, right the way across, circumnavigating the entire northern hemisphere here. Very strong ridging, North Pacific, North Atlantic here. You notice here this reflection, and then you've got a strong ridge over eastern portions of North America and Western Europe as well. But these two standout ridges of a similar strength in terms of the anomaly is pretty standout, actually. It really is a textbook mild positive NAO pattern. Now, I'm going to talk about how this pattern is going to evolve and how the ripple effect from that MJO continuing to progress across the Pacific is going to then change and create a new Rossby wave break pattern. Now, some of this information I'm going to share with you is based on a chap called Christian that's based somewhere in Europe that talks about this in a much more in-depth, much more scientific explanation, which is a little bit above my understanding, to be honest with you. But I want to talk about this and how the complexity of what is taking place now. Sometimes the modelling struggles to see the downstream influences on the atmosphere. And I know some of the model has kind of backed away from a cold scenario during the month of November. And I'm going to talk about how I still think this is very much in play. Now, remember, even with a block over the Arctic, a block over the North Atlantic and Greenland, it doesn't always guarantee cold within Western Europe here. I want to emphasize that point to you, that while we have a favourable pattern for cold within the mid-latitudes, it doesn't always happen to drop into the western half of Europe, UK, Ireland. It's trying to understand and look at the big, broad picture. It is a big world that we live in. It's a very large area we're talking about here within the Arctic region, and the forcing that's taken place over the equatorial portions of the West Pacific. But we've also got a very amplified MJO signal over and extending into further north areas of the North Pacific, probably indicative of that strong warm pull to the east of Japan. That is probably forcing a greater amplitude within the MJO wave itself. But the very strong blocking over the Arctic, over the northern hemisphere at the moment here, very strong ridging within the mid-latitudes and extending even further north than that as well. And you look at this record graphic here for the globe off coolweather.com or coolwx.com. You can see here some cold anomalies, record or near record cold along the west coast of North America. We're seeing a trough digging into the western side of North America, but equally we've got a very strong ridge over eastern North America. At the moment, there's no red dots here representing records in the eastern United States. We do have something showing up. We've got a record daily high of 15 Celsius recorded in what appears to be northern Newfoundland. We've also got a couple of yellow dots representing warmth in Nova Scotia, for example, as well. But look at this here over Europe. We've got a lot of clustering of record or near record warmth over northern and western areas of Europe at the moment. We've got a strong southerly flow. Temperatures here at the house 16.3, not too shabby for the 24th of October, that's for sure. But it's all thanks to a setup here that is conducive of a strong trough over the eastern side of the North Atlantic. We've got a strong ridge over Central Europe, and obviously we've got a strong southerly airflow that is dragging up some subtropical warm air. We've got 564 decameter height lines extending quite far north for the time of the year as well. That is representative of subtropical air. But look at this warmth here across Western Europe. So we're continuing with this very mild theme overall. But I want to show you something here real quick with regards to the stratosphere. And I want to show you the 10 HPAs first. You can see here the cold within the upper levels of the stratosphere. You've got the large blue area, and then you've got the purple, pinky colour representing temperatures of minus 70 Celsius or below. And then we skip out a week from now, you can see here that we continue to see that cold pool within the upper stratosphere here. You notice here that it's kind of shifting a little bit further towards Eurasia here. So we still have somewhat of displacement of the polar vortex. Then skip out to, let's go to 264 hours here at 10 HPA. And again, you can see a fairly robust, fairly strong stratospheric polar vortex. That being said, however, let's go down to the 50 millibar level. So this is the lower portion of the stratosphere. You can see quite a different look. Notice here that we've got the blocking showing up within the model here. This is the initial. Let's skip out to a week from now. And you can see here that we have quite a lot of yellows here showing up North Atlantic up in the Greenland here. That is showing blocking and a weaker vortex within the lower portions of the stratosphere. And what is expected to take place here is as this MJO continues to push eastwards, I would expect to see the blocking return to the high latitudes and an eventual, it changes initially over the North Pacific, then it creates a downstream ripple effect over North America, the Atlantic, and then into Europe. But generally speaking, the 10 millibar level versus the 50 millibar level is two very different looks, and that is representative of what's going on within the troposphere and that forcing that we see within the troposphere up in the stratosphere. Now, this is an interesting tweet here by Christian talking about the Rossby wave breaking event. So this is a tweet from 20 hours ago yesterday. Rossby wave breaking events describe the last stage in the life cycle of baroclinic atmospheric disturbances. These breaking events can strongly influence large-scale circulation and are also related to weather extremes such as heat waves, blocking, and extreme precipitation events. So generally speaking, it's the heat transfer from the wave associated with the MJO moving up into the high latitudes. That affects the jet stream, that affects the depth of both the ridges and troughs, the wave lengths. So the length, the essentially the ridge and the trough are waves within the atmosphere, and that creates a different overall effect downstream. So if we continue to look at these tweets here, he says, identifying the Rossby wave is important to understand atmospheric circulation. This is how the modelling struggles sometimes with distributing the warmth within the atmosphere. We've got the remnants of Hurricane Oscar that affected the East Bahamas, Puerto Rico, and eastern Cuba. That is now moving up into the mid-latitudes. That is generating a push of warmth, subtropical or tropical warmth, up into the mid-latitude pattern. That then has to get taken into consideration as well. But essentially, he says these planetary waves can break, reaching a critical line with heat fluxes towards the stratosphere, creating atmospheric blocks. If ZW are weak or be reflected if the ZW are stronger with a strengthening of the polar vortex. So, like I said, this is where it becomes a little bit harder to understand if you don't know atmospheric physics, and this chap clearly does know what he's talking about. But it's interesting here nonetheless. If you look at this chart here, we actually are stuck in phases 5 of the MJO at the moment. This is the ensemble of the ECMWF. So remember, that we aren't in the cold phases just yet. So we are still stuck in a warm pattern. The pattern is within the entire hemisphere is reflective of a warm MJO signal. We're in 5. That represents a blocking as we move into the day 1 through 5 period. We're expecting to see the MJO in phase 6. MJO phase 6 represents blocking over Europe and over the UK and Ireland, and that is exactly what we are seeing taking place. Overall, like I said in yesterday's video, that we have higher pressure overall dominating Western Europe. We do have frontal systems, we do have jet streams that are moving into the northern UK. That is creating unsettled weather. It's not all plain sailing, but generally speaking, we've got quite a high pressure dominated pattern overall. And over the next 5 days, we're going to see the MJO in phase 6. Then, into the day 5 through 10, you notice here the oranges dots showing that we're moving through phases 7 into 8 and into 1 here. And that is favourable phases for high latitude blocking. So we are expecting to see the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation return back to negative once again. But it's all about the timing. And it's very, very easy. Quickly, you've noticed here in recent videos that I've talked about, the cold may not be until the mid to late portions of November, believe it or not. And it's very, very easy to jump on it and say in the end of October. I've not really mentioned much about the end of October being cold, or we're back into a blocky pattern. We're back into the pattern that was seen at spells during October, earlier in the month, and during the month of September when we had a very deep negative Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation. The atmosphere takes time to evolve and change. And what we're expecting through day 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, we're expecting this eastward rotation of that MJO signal. This is what we're looking at the moment in terms of the ECMWF. As we play through, you notice that pulse of convection, albeit it actually appears to weaken and break up somewhat, but you notice here that we're starting to see it spreading from Asia across the western side of North America. What influence that has on the Rossby wave train and the amplification of the pattern is still subject to question. That has to be emphasized here, everybody. But look here at let's look at the Northern Hemisphere and look at the CFSV2. Let's see what it is now indicating in terms of the week-by-week evolution. So this is the upcoming 7 days. I'd already actually pre-selected this, so I don't know why I'm doing it again. This is how it's looking at the moment. Let's look at week 2 and see what it's showing. You notice here that we've got the block bang slap over the UK and Ireland, over the far east of North America. We're stretching out. We're seeing a stronger jet stream now starting to exit Asia into the North Pacific. I would expect to start to see more of a stretching out. We're going to start to see the actual jet stream become much more amplified and rippled. So this is the period week 2. So what's that? That is the period between the 31st of October, Halloween, and the 7th of November. So we're still in a generally mild pattern. Then as we move into week 3, this is what I'm talking about. We're starting to see the pattern become more amplified. Notice here that we're starting to see the negatives move now towards the North Pacific, Northwest North America. That is going to then push south, forcing warmth and high pressure to lift northwards. Then we're starting to see the westward pull, that retrogression of the high that was over the UK and Ireland week 2, now move into the North Atlantic and up into Greenland here. Let's move on even further. So this is the period between 7th and the 14th of November. Let's see what it's showing the following week. And you can see here that we're starting to see the heights rise over the higher latitudes here. We're starting to see a trough now over Scandinavia. I would expect to start to see more troughiness into the western side of Europe in general, including the UK and Ireland. I would expect also to start to see a trough now replace the ridge that we've got at the moment over eastern North America. So this is what I'm showing. This is off the CFSV2 that is often biased towards a warmer signal across much of the northern hemisphere. Let's look at the ECMWF out of interest and see what it's showing with regards to this pattern evolution. So the upcoming 5 days, and we'll play through each day or each increment here. Let's zoom out just slightly so it's easier to see, hopefully. And let's play through here. So you can see that we've got the negatives at the moment. Then the ridge goes over the UK and Ireland. It's shown at the moment here, this is only going out to day 16, obviously, which is up to the 9th of November, showing that the high over the UK and Ireland. But generally speaking, what I would expect to see is this westward pull as we start to see amplification increase, starting off in the Pacific. Then that affects North America. Then we should start to see, as the pattern changes shape over North America and into the Atlantic, that then forces the westward pull of the ridge and something more trophy showing up over western areas of Europe. I still do think that we're going to see the response to this MJO moving eastwards here. Let's watch as we go forward here. Looking at precipitation over the next week to 10 days, we are going to continue to see very wet conditions. You notice here exactly where that high is stuck over the Atlantic, moisture rotating around that circulation of high pressure centre just to the north of the Azores. We've also got a fairly dry signal actually across the majority of England and Wales, which is good news considering the amount of wet weather we've seen here in recent times. We've also got a strip of heavy rainfall just off the west coast of Ireland, maybe clipping the west of Ireland, also the west of Scotland. But the concern really is across parts of Iberia, back in the south of France once again, where we've seen tremendous flooding in recent times, and then over parts of Italy as well. We are expecting to see more heavy precipitation moving in. We've got quite a dry slot actually across eastern England in particular, Netherlands, Belgium, and into parts of central and southern Germany. Quite a lot of dry conditions here. We've also got very dry conditions across parts of the Balkan region also. But look at all this moisture across parts anywhere from Sicily and Sardinia all the way to the east of Spain. And this would be good news, obviously, for the drought-stricken areas of eastern and southern Iberia. So yeah, you can see where the high pressures are centred, especially across Europe, area across to the north of the Azores. But we will start to see this pattern changing going forward. Looking back to the overview chart real quick, and I want to show you this setup that we've got at the moment. If it will choose to refresh, let's hit the refresh button and see if it's going to show you it here. I want to show you the overall pattern at the moment, southerly flow, and then I wanted to show you the 850 temperatures real quick. So yeah, we've got an area of low pressure. Notice here, there's the high both over the Atlantic, over Europe here. We've got an area of low pressure at 968 millibars on the north shore of Iceland. We've got the trough digging south from between Greenland and Scandinavia, all the way down to the west of Europe here. That is allowing very, very mild air to come north. If we look at the 850 temperatures, you can see the mild air, nothing exceptional at 850 millibars, but nonetheless a southerly flow with some sunshine and mild conditions at 850. You then see temperatures reflective of this. So this is 14s, 15s. We had 16 on a couple of spots on the Murray Coast in recent hours. We've also got mid-teens across the bulk of Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, England, Wales. That is a mild overall setup. Let's look at the European view for temperature real quick. You can see here a fairly mild overall Europe, warmer in the west, slightly cooler across the east, but even across Scandinavia, we've got temperatures in the mid-teens in parts of southern Norway, Sweden, Finland, the Baltic states as well, showing some quite mild temperatures. Let's have a look at the radar real quick, actually, out of interest. So this is the radar across the UK and Ireland at the moment here. We've got wet weather across the southwest, the far west of Scotland, gale force winds and heavy rain through the Outer Hebrides, some shower activity across the Trossachs and Loch Lomond area, dry across the bulk of the rest of the UK. Let's look at the satellite image here and see what it's showing. So yeah, look at this here. So with the help of sunshine, look at the waves bouncing off the clouds, bouncing off the mountains here in the west of Scotland here. As these strong winds blow up the western side of Scotland over the hills, it's creating that ripple effect within the atmosphere. It's always interesting to see that. But this is cold air getting drafted southwards into that deep trough. Then we've got milder that is allowing some fairly warm temperatures for late October up the eastern side of Iberia, through France, and up the eastern side of the UK, as can be seen here. So, yeah, very interesting things going on at the moment here. Have I forgotten anything? Yes, I have. Look at this here. Full winter conditions over the far east of Turkey. This was the scene, by the way, about, what, 36, 24, 36 hours ago. Wow. So, obviously, we've got the milder in the west of Europe. We've got the warmer in the colder in the east of Europe. And this was the response of that colder, major winter conditions in parts of the eastern Black Sea plateaus of Turkey. So pretty incredible stuff, actually, when you think about that in recent times in the far east of Turkey. Have I forgotten anything else at the moment here? I'm not so sure. So yeah, we'll call it quits at that. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope if you're a winter lover like myself, there is reason to be optimistic. Let's wait and see how this pattern evolves over the next few weeks here. But it's very important to not necessarily rush this overall pattern. Also, by the way, just real quick before I forget, this is the ECM mean zonal winds speeds here, and it's showing that we are close to average at the moment. We go above average, then it looks as if there's going to be a dip towards average once again, back above average. Record strong mean zonal winds at 10 millibars, which is quite interesting. But you can see here these kind of ups and downs in terms of the strength of that 10 millibar mean zonal wind over the next few weeks here, and then it goes close to average. Few members showing above, but a few members showing quite a drop off in terms of those winds. That would probably be in response. I would expect to start to see the 10 millibar winds easing in strength once you start to get that block and redevelopment over the Arctic region. Remember, the troposphere is a lot thinner over the Arctic region, so there's a lot more influence on what's happening below up into the stratosphere when you've got that block, and when you've got a very, very negative height field over the Arctic region. There is no friction, and therefore you would expect to see these winds accelerate like we have done at 10 millibars. When you've got no block and you've got low heights within the Arctic region, that means there's no bulging, there's no heat transfer from troposphere into the stratosphere. Those winds then should start to accelerate, especially at this time of the year. But once you see the block and return, we'd expect to see the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillation going negative. We would start to see frictional effects on the stratospheric circulation. So therefore, you would see a weakening of those 10 millibar level winds. So let's wait and see what happens. I hope you can stick around here on the channel, because we've got more winter chat coming up. We've got a tropical outlook on Saturday. We've got a live stream on Sunday, as always. So 7 days a week content here on the channel. Keep it right here, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.